Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome back to Notorious Scoundrels Without Dad. I am here with my main man, Zach. How you doing, dude?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm good.
You pulled a Kyle. That's fine.
I pulled a Kyle.
Yeah. How you doing, guys?
You
don't ever like when he says it.
It is natural. I guess I should give him less crap for that, right?
No. Keep giving him crap. That's the fun part.
Yeah, it totally is. It totally is. So, I don't know. Would you call this week a slow news week?
Well, we got some, articles about the LAAT and the AA5. We went over some of that stuff last week. There was an official AA5 article, which we'll go over with some information that came out. It wasn't like a ton, but some good stuff in there. Then there was some leaked cards from the LAAT with some more pilots that we can go over in a little bit too, which we normally don't do, spoiled stuff like that, leak stuff, but these seem pretty legit and they're on the Discord and they're actually like physical copies of the cards. Yeah. And, at that point, it's worth talking about,
Totally. So yeah, we've got all that stuff and we are into the Sweet 16 for Invader League Single Elims. I think we've got a lot of good data to talk about. I think we're finally at a point where we can consider I think the meta is very clear and obvious based on the top 16 that we're gonna talk about. Like there's not a lot of question marks, I think.
No, it's just like Anchorman. Diversity is an old wooden ship.
Yeah, totally. So we'll go over that. So I guess why don't we start? Well, actually, let's start with housekeeping because that's important.
Yes, sir.
We have pre-orders up for all of our limited edition sidebars or some of our non-limited edition sidebars that we normally sell. They're going pretty fast. So I would, if you like any of our theme sidebars, or if you like the order tokens and want some sidebars to go with the order tokens, that's a good thing to look into. So check that out. We're still selling Cubicle Raiders on the online store. We've still got some copies of that left. So check those things out. And, we appreciate everybody's support and be on the lookout for more cool stuff in the future. Yeah, so let's dive into these spoilers, Zach. So why don't you take us away?
Let's start with the official stuff here. So we got the AA5 article last week from AMG, or it might have been on Fantasy Flight. I get confused on where they pop these articles.
It is the articles are still being posted on FFG.
That's what I thought. Okay, there's some information that we knew, and then there's some information that we didn't, and a lot of that comes in the form of pilots. And let me say, these pilots, specifically one pilot, looks really, really fun. So we already knew about Shriv, which we talked about last week. Let's start with Hotshot Pilot. And then we'll get to the good one after. Not that Hotshot Pilot isn't good, because Hotshot Pilot is fantastic. Hotshot Pilot is for Rebel only, repulsor vehicle only, and you gain Sharpshooter 1. 8 points. Seems pretty good. It almost seems like you just kind of put that on an airspeeder, which I know it has surge crit, which might seem like overkill, but I don't know. It still seems pretty good to throw on it, especially if you have the harpoon or the other one there. I can't think of.
I think you slap this baby on the airspeeder and the land speeder just like every time.
Yeah.
The
buzzer, the ground buzzer.
Yeah, right. Like it makes the weapon out of the back a lot better because you don't have to worry about cover as much. Yeah, man. I think it might be even more devastating in the land speeder just because it's got a bigger die pool and you're gonna penetrate more hits through cover most of the time. But I think this is the card that Rebel vehicle players have always wanted. and have not had. And I think that this is like, I think this takes airspeeders from what I still consider to be like, I feel like they went from unplayable to like C tier, like they're okay, but they're not like frightening monsters. I think this takes them into the potentially frightening monster category.
I think so too, especially for 8 points. Like, you know, the thing about the airspeeders, I always thought it needed sharpshooter one. It never really made sense to me that it didn't have sharpshooter because it's always like looking down on the opponent, but like the way cover works, sometimes like you're just not getting the shots that you really wanted. Um, Obviously, it didn't surge crit beforehand, so it felt probably even more important before it had surge crit. Surge crit is just basically the icing on the cake when you're throwing sharpshooter one on it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I found that like a lot of times you can find a squad like in the open, right? But like it had a suppression token on it, so it's still got like cover,
Yeah,
type of situation. Like even if you're navigating your airspeeder well, like they're still gonna have cover because they've already gotten shot or whatever. Like this is just like you better be in hard cover or you don't have any, So I think this is great. I mean,
also the artwork is great.
yeah, it's just like a
Another
Wookiee,
Wookiee.
like is that supposed to be like Chewbacca? That's not Chewbacca. It doesn't look like Chewbacca, I don't think.
I'm not sure, but he is he's like ready to go. Look at that guy. He's like ready to rip it.
He is.
Looks like you when we played Squadrons for like a week and a half.
It totally does. It totally does. So yeah, I actually think so. When the AA5 originally got previewed, in there with like the cards and the stream and stuff, I thought it was like not a super great weapons platform, but they also previewed another weapon mount on this thing that I think is a little bit more reasonable.
Yeah. Do you want to go into the weapon or you want to go into the other pilot first?
Let's talk about the other weapon just because I think that
it ties in. It ties in well here.
Pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that weapon is the AG2G quad laser. Say that 10 times fast. For 36 points, it shoots at range 1 to 3. It rolls 6 black dice. It has impact 2. So on a non-surging unit, you're throwing 6 dice, but if you're gaining sharpshooter 1, it's making it feel a lot better, right?
Yeah, it's just +1 hit most of the
time.
Right.
And then obviously, let's say you're going against like an airspeeder and they have, not the cover pilot in there, your impact 2 is now, going into that armor because you're negating the cover, which is, important to note against like Barks or speed, Imperial speeder bikes, in, T47s. Those are the first things that come to my mind that have cover and armor. So yeah, I think that this is definitely a better, I wouldn't say better. It's a good option to have because the other weapon that we went through last week was the range 1 to 4 gun that has critical 1, throws a rainbow dice pool, and it's only 16 points, mind you. So it's definitely 20 points cheaper. But like, if you're throwing the sharpshooter 1 pilot on there, I don't think you're taking the heavy laser retrofit because the critical 1 is your sharpshooter in that situation. Totally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the sharpshooter isn't really going to gain you much in that situation,
Yeah, I also think just from like what is this, if you slap the gun on this thing, it's now like it's like over 110 point transport. I think, and the gun, like even the 6-die gun is really not very good. You're averaging 3 hits,
right?
Like before cover, like it's not super great. And then if you like slap the Hotshot Pilot on it, you're maybe like getting 2 hits through it.
Yeah,
it feels a little slot machiney. Like if you want a gun that's range 1 to 3 that's actually good, just take ATRTs with rotary cannons.
Yeah.
Right. They're much cheaper.
Which kind of, so just for reference, Hotshot Pilot in the quad laser is 119. It's 119 points just for the pilot and the gun, which leads me to believe that your best option is to not take a gun and to take the pilot while transporting someone in it.
Yeah,
And
I think you might be right.
why I'm saying that is that the reckless driver, which is maybe like the funniest thing I've ever seen in Legion. It is AA5 speeder truck only, and when you activate, perform a compulsory move. You cannot reverse. The first time during your activation that you displace an enemy unit, roll 1 white defense die for each mini in the unit. That unit suffers 1 wound for each block result. Not all paint, block results, just to mind you. 6 points.
Same as clambering, right?
Yes. Yeah, essentially. 6 points for reckless driver. And I say that your Luke Skywalker mobile just slaps this guy in there and you just plow people over. I think what's getting lost in this real quick. Now, as fun as it is to like roll people over with this, the compulsory move is actually super important for it.
Oh, it's the best part of this card. It's like hidden, but it's the best part of this.
Yeah, it's what I'm saying. Like it's like the first thing it tells you to do, but you forget about it because like the fun part comes after it.
Yeah.
But like that compulsory move is massive.
Yeah, I mean, you get to move 3 times with this, right? Like if you got the reckless driver on here, which is for a transport. Like, can you imagine if you could move the tank 3 times, right? Like the Gav tank or like a Saber tank or something like that. Like it would be amazing. And so the fact that basically this effect feels to me like tank shock, right? I don't know, like those of you that have played Warhammer, like when you like tanks can like just like drive into infantry and like run them over basically. And I'm sure a lot of war games, but like we don't really like, we've got that in like displacement and stuff, but like you can't kill your opponent that way. This is like the first like, oh, I literally just drove over you, so guess some people die, you know.
It should be noted, and I believe that is on the AMG rules fac already. I believe someone asked ahead of time here, is that if you land on multiple units, you're only hitting 1 unit with the reckless driver. I'm pretty sure that's what I read. I believe the question was, if you landed on 6 B1 units, can you hit all 6?
No, this says to me,
it's just 1 unit.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that it's only 1 unit. That would be insane.
That would be insane.
It's worth noting that like clambering, like poison and stuff, this does not let your opponent roll an armor save. So this kills clones as well as it does B1s like per die, right? So you know, if you're fed up with the clone ball, drive your AA Reckless 5 driver in and drop Operative Luke off and just start cutting things up.
It's so good.
It is. I mean, I think it's very good. I wish that every vehicle that was like a tank in Legion had this effect.
If you were to take the reckless driver and you were to take the onboard comms channel,
which I don't think we've talked about yet, have we?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. If for reference, the onboard comm channel, I can't remember these days what we've talked to. What we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
So it's vehicle only, so it's good for all factions, and it's during the issue order step of the command phase. After you are issued an order, you may issue an order to a unit you are transporting, and that's for 3 points. Essentially, if you're putting an order on the AA5 and you're transporting Luke Skywalker, which you're probably going to put an order on Luke anyways, but let's say you have a card in there that that doesn't necessarily give one to Luke. You pop it on the AA5, you trigger onboard comms channel, Luke has an order, or whoever you're transporting, right? We use Luke as like the the keynote traveler of the AA5, but it's whoever's in the AA5 traveling in it. You can give him an order, which is super important. You're getting an extra order out every time. And like I said, that can go on any vehicle. It's not specific to the AA5.
Yeah, I actually think that this might have a little bit more play in like the E-Web tank synergy, and that like you take the E-Web, you put linked targeting array on it, and you put like a generator on it, and you put onboard comms on the tank. You just give the order a tank, and you generate an order plus a name token, and the E-Web. You just drive it up into your opponent's face, and just I don't know. Seems like it could be decent if your E-Web doesn't die.
I mean, it's like a buff you weren't really expecting for it, right?
Totally. And for 3 points, like don't get me wrong, like points are tight in Legion, but 3 points for an upgrade is like it's more doable than most. You know, this is a like a luxury upgrade that you can afford to have.
3 points for an extra order a turn is like really strong.
Yeah,
really. I mean,
I think like the lists you don't want it in are lists that like give orders to specific things that aren't your like for instance, I actually think it's kind of bad in the Luke list because most of Luke's orders give orders just to Luke, so it's like
and you're typically going to have those cards in your hand,
because they're good. So I think that pretty much does it for the cards that were officially spoiled in the FFG article. Shall we hit the ones that are maybe a little bit more on the Discord?
And like I said, we typically don't do these, but these are physical copies of the cards that are actually, if you're on the Legion Discord, they are in Legion General and they are pinned. So if you wanted to look at the card art, they are there for you to look at. So the LAAT article last week only had Price and Fox and some other information too. But in terms of pilots, it's all they had. And these 2 pictures that were posted, where they originated from, I don't know. But they showed 2 more pilots per faction. So starting with the clones, the first one is Hound and Grizzer. And that is Republic only LAAT. And you gain Observe 4, which costs an action. And, Observe is choose an enemy unit, range 1 to 3, yada, 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 for 8 points. Which, we discussed beforehand, you and I did. I feel like, Observe 4 on, like, most units would be probably really good. On the LAAT, I think the LAAT's in a weird predicament here because you have to kind of choose when list building how you're going to play the LAAT, and you kind of have to commit to it, I think.
I think so too.
Like, let's say you're putting Hound and Grizzer and like HE shells on the LAAT on clones, right? And HE shells give you a range 4 option, yes, but you're going to try to get into range 3 and shoot some things because then you get your full dice pool, and now you can observe with Hound and Grizzer. But the issue is your action economy gets really strange. You have to think about, do I move and shoot? Do I shoot and move? Do I observe and shoot? Do I aim and shoot? Do I shoot, recover, shoot? You're giving yourself a lot of different like actions that you want to take, and while that's okay to have those options, in the heat of the moment, you might have like paralysis and you might not know what the best option is. And that's like the one thing about Legion is that when you have like that like paralysis of thinking, it can ultimately end up costing you because you're going to second guess yourself a lot of the time. Like Legion paralysis is real. It happens all the time in games when you start second guessing yourself. And I feel like while Observe 4 is awesome, I feel like it can put you into that position.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm in the boat that like once you engage with the LAAT, if it's not acting as a transport, you pretty much are recover shooting like every turn.
That's how I feel too.
Specifically with the Republic version, like we'll talk about the Imperial pilots in a second, but like, so if you recover shooting, like you're not observing 4, I feel like if the LAAT had like a compulsory move, this could be a lot better. I feel like if the LAAT's like, I think the LAAT's base gun on its own, if your shells are down, is pretty bad for 130 points or however much you're paying for it. Like,
it depends on what you're putting on it, but yeah.
Red 3 black, no surge, no sharpshooter is kind of like, eh.
Yeah. And my issue isn't actually necessarily the dice. It's actually the 1 to 3 range doesn't really mix well with the HE shells. And I keep on mentioning HE shells because I still think those are like the best shells you can put on most vehicles, just because of the critical, especially
And the cost is
and the cost.
too,
Yeah.
right.
But the thing about this is that your LAAT, to get its full value, is not going to want to shoot at range 4. It's going to want to shoot at range 3.
Yeah.
And the thing that I've learned with vehicles is they really don't want to be at range 3. Like, that's why the AAT and the Saber tank are so strong, and they're like the strongest vehicles probably in the game right now, right? Is they can hit you at range 4, and they can sit there and recover shoot at range 4 for as long as possible, and they don't actually have to enter that gauntlet at range 3.
It also just like opens their flexibility up, right? Like,
right,
you know,
totally.
Like the difference between a range 3 and range 4 gun is big.
It's huge. It's huge. Like, unless like your opponent coheres forward and you can catch a unit at range 3 and they can't fire back at you with their whole army. Typically, armor units at range 3. I know that like people might be fishing for crits, but like, let's say instead of like 1 unit shooting me back and it turns into 6 units shooting me back, their chances of shooting crits just like went up exponentially. Especially when it's a white save unit. So I just think like, again, the LAAT's in such a weird, you have to commit when you're building this LAAT out, when it finally comes out, you have to commit to whatever situation you're putting in it, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I sort of, you know, I hate to say this generally, but I sort of think the LAAT is like the new airspeeder, in that like people are going to want this to be good. It's just like, it's like a 10-point cheaper airspeeder that doesn't compulsory move, and its dice pool is 2 less. Like most, you know, unless you're recover shooting, in which case you can't move at all, you know. We'll see. Anyways, yeah, Hounded Grizzler, I think like if it was like 1 point, I'm still not sure you would take it.
I'm not sure. I don't disagree. I think the option is fun to have.
Yeah.
I just, again, I still think it's just giving you too many things to try to do.
Totally. Totally agree.
For the other one that's there is the Clone Shock Trooper Pilot.
This I think is actually like interesting,
especially if you're planning on transporting with it, right?
Yep.
You know, so again, it's Republic LAAT only. It's after a unit you are transporting disembarks. It gains 1 surge token in either 1 aim or 1 dodge token, and this is for 4 points.
This effect is, in my mind, so much better than Observe 4, and this one's like half the cost.
It plays into what I think that the Clone LAAT probably wants to do.
Yeah.
Which is probably transport something behind enemy lines.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only because the dice pool that we discussed is really, when you're building a clone army, why take those dice when you can take other dice, right? You know.
Yeah, but why? You know, you can take a 90 phase 2 Z6 that kills things a heck of a lot better than this thing does.
Right. So if you give this thing a specific job, and you have something that plays into that job, it's you know, it's good to have. You know, like,
I mean, you know, Anakin or Obi-Wan jumping on the LAAT, getting a free dodge token. It's not the worst thing in the world, you know.
Excellent.
So no, I'm in for that, you know. And the surge token, I mean, like, and even like just like a clone squad getting out of the LAAT and getting a free aim token when they do it, so they can just open up on whatever, you know, like a full arc squad. Not that I don't know if full arc, this makes like full arcs playable, but like I could maybe see, you know, like if you can finally get your full arcs up there, so that they're protected, like maybe this makes them decent.
It should be noted that you will not get tactical on your disembark. Just so you know.
Sure, but this gives you pseudo tactical.
Yeah, it gives you pseudo tactical.
This kind of gives it back to you. So.
But you're not getting that second aim. I just wanted to clarify that, because that was a hot discussion this week.
If you're disengaging at range 2, like, trust me, you don't need it.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say you don't even really need it. Yeah. Arcs shooting at range 2, full arcs at range 2 is just.
Oh, it's disgusting.
It's disgusting.
It's like a much better Z6 shot with Pierce and sharpshooter.
Which also, if let's say you think their range 2 gun is good, I've also seen Mike use them in melee in a disgusting fashion too. So because it's essentially the same dice.
I mean, they honestly, like, full arcs are better in melee than a Z6 is at range.
It's true though, like it really is.
Like like that's like an objective fact.
It
right?
is. Yeah,
Like,
they would be throwing what? Five
five
black,
black, five
five
white.
white,
Yeah, which is
surge.
better than four
No,
black,
no, no,
six
they're not
white.
surges. Yeah. You
Well,
lose
they
the
are
lethal.
surging, right? Because they have surge tokens.
Yeah, yeah. There you
Right.
go.
So like,
Yeah.
it's yeah. When you throw a full arc pool in with like without aim tokens, your average is 5. You average 5. Like that's just the average with no aim tokens.
Seems fine. It's a
Casual,
good average to have.
casual 5. Yeah.
Now for the LAAT on the Empire side, let's get off those clones here.
These are much better.
Absolutely. I think the first one I'm going to go over, which is Baron Reuter. He is Imperial only, repulsor vehicle only. You gain marksman, and after you recover, you gain 1 aim token, and he's 12 points. I think that 12 might be a little steep for him, but the effect that he's giving you is pretty important because you're going to want to be recovered. If you're going to be putting this LAAT in a position, especially in Empire, I think you're going to be wanting this to do what it's doing here, which is recovering and shooting more often than the clone one, let's say, right?
100%. I think you take Rudor, you take the high velocity shells, and you take link targeting array, and you just, once you get into range, you recover, shoot every turn, and you recover to get your shells back. You got an aim token from Rudor, and you got an aim token from link targeting array, and you have marksman from Rudor. So like, you're just this feels good to me. I think like you said, it might be too expensive. I don't like, we'll have to see.
Slightly.
It definitely punishes you for like getting into position and then like needing to move.
Yeah.
Right. Because like then you kind of like can't do the thing.
Right.
But even without recovering, if you have to move, shoot, and you have link targeting array, like you still have marksman. So like you can kind of, I don't know.
The way I see it essentially, right, is if you're bringing the stackable aims, like you're saying, you're bringing 2 aims and you have the HE shells, I would say you're probably passing 3 crits through, 2 to 3 crits through because of marksman and because of critical 1 in the HE shells, because you don't naturally surge and you're most likely going to roll a couple hits with those black and red dice, right? So like you're going to probably have a surge in there. You take that surge that's critical, you take the 2 aims, you make those into, hits into crits most likely. I mean, of course you could always turn blanks into hits and make it a full die pool. It's essentially probably the same thing, but it depends on what you're shooting. It depends on what you're shooting. If you're trying to shoot through cover and you can pass more crits through, like that's obviously, the math probably ends up equal.
It depends on what you're shooting at.
Yeah.
And, like all that jazz. I think the question still is like, do you really want to pay 140 points to like deal 3 hits to something or 3 crits? Like we'll see. But yeah, I think that this guy is good or potentially, like, I think he's the best pilot we've seen.
I think so too. And like, I know I said I mentioned that 12 might be a little steep. I'm not saying that it makes him unplayable. I just think it could just be tuned a little bit down, maybe, just a little bit.
Am I crazy? Is there another repulsor vehicle that Imperials have that like I'm not remembering because it's bad? No, it's just like this doesn't. Okay.
Tank and ATST, yeah.
Yo, I really want like TIE fighters or something. That would be cool to like strafe the battlefield with.
Because I think if you could put Baron Reuter in an ATST or a tank, I feel like he'd be pretty good.
Oh, he'd be bonkers.
But that's why we have balance here. That's why we have repulsive vehicle.
Yeah.
Now we have the Imperial Tie Pilot, which I think someone joked around, said is basically Soontir Fel from X-Wing. I don't know.
Possible.
I don't know these.
I'm not sure if Soontir is canon anymore. Is the thing.
That could be the thing. I don't know. Now for 8 points, you increase your maximum speed by 1. Now it's not a may. It specifically says increase your maximum speed by 1, which I guess you probably couldn't slow down anyways. But
yeah, there's no compulsories on this, so it doesn't.
Yeah, so I was just gonna think it's not compulsory, so it doesn't even matter. So for 8 points, you can make this thing speed 3. Clearly, if you're doing this, you're transporting.
Oh, totally. I mean, basically, this adds 4 inches to a double move, which is fine. This is like a combo piece for sure. This is like, if I'm trying to like dive bomb Palpatine or Vader into melee with the patrol transport, I think you take this.
I think so too.
But other than that, I'm not even sure it's necessary.
So the base we discussed last week was like 120 millimeters, which was like 4.74 inches or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I doubt it will be necessary. It's a good option to have, I suppose. Seeing that thing fly at speed 3 is probably actually traumatizing because like,
yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Zoom.
I know that this is like another pilot, the airspeeder pilot. Or is airspeeder already 3?
Yes, airspeeder's 3, yeah.
I was gonna be like, airspeeders already want this, but they have it already, so whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Fine. I think all of these pilots need to be like halved in price. And I feel that way about a lot of these upgrades that we're looking at. Like I feel like you could cut all these upgrades in half and they would be interesting, but still not auto takes.
Except for Reckless Driver, he's fine, baby. He's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Reckless Driver is probably fine. That's true. But like, I think even like the guns on the AA5, like you could probably cut them in half, and it would be fine.
I'm not gonna lie. Reading off the hardpoint guns for the AA5, I was like, oh, this kind of feels land speederish. Like, the hardpoints just feel a little rough to like justify. That doesn't mean they're bad. It's just when you're competitively list building, points add up quickly.
Well, I think we've seen a trend when it comes to vehicles, in that when we get vehicles that are like have no gun or a very limited gun on their main chassis, the guns they get added always feel like really overpriced, and I think that's because they are. But I just
I can understand the hesitation to kind of price. I think they're probably thinking shoot high,
rein it in, like better than be like way too good, right?
I would rather that be the situation, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you want to see like a busted like hard point on one of these, units. So I'd rather see them shoot high and rein it in.
I'm with you 100%.
But speaking of shooting high and reining it in, how about the Invader statistics that were
Invader statistics?
Well, I shouldn't say we have statistics. I think we have the remaining list. We could bring up statistics. I think Kyle's posted some stats somewhere.
That's very fair.
But I think that we said this precast. I think the list that are remaining honestly speak enough for the stats that Kyle's shown us. Honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not sure how. So like the generic stats are Republic, like the generic analysis of the stats is that Republic's killing everything. Empire is like basically not in the tournament. We knew that. Separatists, I think the Separatist win-loss percentage is kind of misleading.
Absolutely.
Just because there are so many Separatists in the tournament.
Yep.
So like a lot of them had to lose by default.
I mean, there was 45% of lists in Invader League were droid lists. First of all, you're going to have a lot of mirror matches, right? Or not mirror matches, but a lot of droid on droid matches. I don't know what the number would be, but the more you have in the tournament, the more that number is going to look worse because of the volume of lists that were in the tournament.
Yeah. So I guess just so people know what we're talking about, so there was originally 18 rebels. There are now 6, which means they converted from the total elim pool to now 33% of their lists. Republic started with 17, there are now 8. They converted about half to the top 16, which is actually pretty good.
It is.
Not
to cut you off, I actually think rebels are only 3. Top 16, unless I'm looking at the wrong setup of lists.
I'm looking at the stuff that Kyle posted.
Maybe it's not yesterday. Up to date because I have the top 16 lists. or is there more games to be played still?
No, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah. No, this is the top like 18, I guess, based
Okay.
on this count. Yeah. So all right. So there's only 3 rebel lists left.
There's only 3 level.
Okay. So maybe this is looks a little different then.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to be like, wait a minute.
Like half the remaining rebel lists, I guess, still had to play. So yeah, I mean, Separatists had are like 16% remaining, but like because their count was so high, like of course they were gonna end up, and the fact that Republic is doing so well is also making that number look really like worse than it probably should.
Totally. Like Republic was, and we discussed this at several points the past couple of casts. Republic was set up well to fight the droids here.
I mean, yeah, I think it would. One of the takeaways from the statistics we've been looking at, and for those of you out there, the reason we're not mentioning an Empire is because there's none left.
Legitimately,
yeah, there's none left. Yeah. I think there was only 1 left last round. So
yeah, there's 7 clones, 6 droids, 3 rebels left in the top 16.
Okay. So yeah, and I mean, like, I just like Republic versus Separatist win percentage in this tournament, I think is kind of the talking point coming out. Like, if there's any takeaway other than Empire maybe needs some help, it's the Republic versus Separatist matchup and the fact that it is 80-20 in the Republic's favor.
That's banana land.
Yeah, especially based on like how people expected Separatists to perform, the fact that Separatists are bringing like 20 to 30 point bids and like still losing.
Yeah,
the
interesting part to me is that every clone list is out activated with the exception of Kyle's list. So Kyle is a 10 activation droid list, which is like kind of really, honestly, it's low for a droid list at this point. Every other list remaining in the tournament has 11 acts or 13 acts other than Kyle's droid list, right? So that's a
droid list, yeah.
Right. Every clone list has 9 or 10 activations.
Totally.
So in every one of those matchups, unless you're playing against Kyle, you're out activated and you're most likely going to lose your bid. It depends. There's definitely some high Republic bids in here, mind you.
Yeah.
So that's not necessarily always the case, but you're going to be out activated. And I think going into the tournament and people seeing the high activation droid lists and seeing the lower activation clone lists, logically speaking, you're thinking you're down activations. It's hard for them to kind of counter that. The thing about it though, and I think Mike and I might have held this back a little bit because we weren't trying to really give away Mike's strategy. Mike's strategy is probably out of the bag at this point, but take that Clankers and air support. Really take care of the problems. And what you can do with clones is manipulate the battlefield that way, because the one common thing about most of these clone lists is Rex is in it. So there's only one list that doesn't have Rex, and that's because there's a Saber tank. And that makes sense because Clone Commander's a way better fit for that list, I think, and what it's trying to accomplish.
100%.
But every other list here has the answers to deal with droids because you're mulching them at long range. Most droid lists can't hit you back at the range. Sure, they might have like an E5S sprinkled in there. And yes, they have snipers. But I'm sure, Mike, you're positioning yourself to get your take that Clankers. Like if you need to like keep your take that Clankers unit like in a position where they're moving and shooting and they're not getting shot back, you're just basically moving up and shooting. You have all the aims behind you, backing you up. And then you either start with air support or you come back with air support on turn 2, and you're just hitting units from range that the droids can't answer. And next thing you know, their 11 activation to your 10 activations is now 8 or 9 activations to your 10 Europe activations,
So it's interesting. So I think
well, you've played some weird games, mind you.
I have played some weird games.
Yeah.
I'm going to get to that in a second. But I do think that, overall, like that was my plan going into Invader League, and that like I was just planning on mulching droids at range 4. I think the prevalence that we've seen from Republic in this tournament thus far is like largely predicated on that. But I also think that like I've played my Republic versus Separatist games, which has been all of my games so far, at range 3, and I've just like, it the Z6 is just really efficient at taking droids off the table. Call Me Captain is really great at taking droids off the table. There's just a lot of dice in these Republic lists, specifically if you can hit Call Me Captain well. And I think it's really hard to deal with if you don't have like a Maul or a Dooku or something to like make it so that there's like a penalty for getting into like range 3. So I do think that to some extent here we are seeing, at the end of the day, you can't hide droids, is the thing.
Yep.
And because you can't hide them, things that can pass damage through cover well really excel. And like clones, like that's what clones do well, is they pass damage through cover because they're rolling so many dice and they've got so many aim tokens. And there's no saves to back it up, right?
No.
Like once it goes through cover, it's basically dead.
Yep. I mean, I don't know if you've done it. I'm sure that other Republic players are probably doing it. Is you can always, like, let's say you're shooting like a 7-man B1 squad, right? And they're in heavy cover. Well, I'm sure someone's loading up aim tokens somewhere and taking a ARC trooper and an ARC sniper, loading up an ARC shot with a Z6 fire supporting it, or like a 5 squad fire supporting it. And
fire support your strike
and
teams.
Just mulching them.
Yep.
Like you're talking, red and black, and you're adding to a Z6. You're giving it critical, giving it lethal. You're getting all the aims to re-roll them. You have surge tokens backing it up. You're essentially, and you're taking away, heavy cover down to light. And that's what droids don't like. Like when they're caught out of cover or their cover gets lessened, they just, they break. They have terrible, terrible saves, especially when they're rolling a volume of dice. So yeah, I don't think you and I are surprised by this.
No, I'm not super surprised by this. I do think that just for viewers at home, basically the breakdown of the top 16 is, in Separatists, you're either playing triple staff something. It might not be the 13 act, but it's triple staff, or you're playing Maul. It's like one or the other. If you're playing Rebels, you're playing basically Luke or Sabine plus some sort of extra like focus piece. Like the Rebel lists are a little bit
they're interesting.
They are interesting. One's got an airspeeder in Luke, the other one's got 3 Wookiees in Luke and Lando, and then another one has like Clan Ren, Sabine, Lando. All of them have R2D2 in it. Also, all of the Republic lists, bar 2 of them, have R2D2 in it, which is also interesting. I'm one of them. It should be notable. Well, Sammy P's.
Oh, yes, Padme. Sorry,
is playing Padme. So
Padme,
there's a copy of Secret Mission. Actually, I think Sammy P is maybe not playing diplomatic cover now that I'm thinking about it.
Oh, really?
I'm playing him next round, so that's why I know that. So I had to scope us.
Now, is it just one? Is it just one ATRT? Or?
It is one ATRT. It's and I actually think it might not be 10 activations. It might be 9.
That's an interesting list.
I'll have to double check that, but yeah, I mean, there's only 3 core units in it, so it's definitely interesting. I'm not entirely sure like what it does. It's also got it's like the only one of the only lists I'm actually going to beat on a bid. I
was just looking at that. It's got 0 bid and you have 3 bid.
I'm blue player for the first time and probably only time in this tournament.
Hey, you can always choose red.
Yeah, and so so basically all the Republic lists are like Rex gun lines. Most of them have R2 other than mine, or Saber tank, right? List, yeah. And so that's the makeup of the top 16. It's actually far more consistent than I thought it would be. Considering I mean, I think like there was 11 Rex gun lines that entered the tournament. It looks like 6 of them remained.
I expected it to do well. but I expected it to kind of have maybe some bad matchups early on and might not survive.
Yeah.
But it's also possible that like they just got good matchups, kind of like I wouldn't say you got good matchups because you got AATs, which is kind of a bad matchup for you. But I'm thinking that
I'm not sure that's true, but the thing about Rex is like I think there are very few bad matchups.
That's fair. I shouldn't say that's bad matchup. It wasn't what you were preparing for. That's why
the flexibility of the list is insane.
It really, yeah, it is. But yeah, like the thing that's glaring here through these lists is one, there's no Imperials, which is a super feels bad because I believe that this is the second Invader League in a row where there was not an Imperial in top 16. I'd have to go check.
I mean, I know that there was not one in the top 8.
I don't remember one being top 16. But I can go look back. I'm sure those are somewhere in my notes. But the other thing that you're noticing is that clones are still good.
Clones are still great. Like I think, even in a lot of these top 16 matchups, I think clones are like heavily favored to take at this point. I think clones are heavily favored to take down the tournament.
The other takeaway is droids can have their cake and eat it too. And what I mean by that is get good activations and still take like ridiculous bids.
Yeah, so there's 3 triple staffs left.
Yeah. One has a 10, one has a 13, and one has a 25.
Yeah.
There is a triple staff list that's not the 13. It's got some B2s in there, which I actually think I like better than the 13 list, mind you. It's 11 activations, and that has an 18 bid. And it's got 3 B1s, 3 B2s, 1 sniper, 3 staffs. I like that model actually quite a bit. Because the B2s at least feel like they can like pack a punch behind the staffs. And if you time it correctly, like I'm sure that's very punishing. I haven't seen it in action yet, but I'm assuming that that's the case.
B2s I feel like are really this has kind of been their debut tournament and their effectiveness. And considering how far their points got dropped, it shouldn't be too much of a surprise.
You got Babette here, who I've heard through grapevine that they sent in the wrong list. And that's why they have a 34-point bid. I'm not positive what was cut by mistake or whatever happened here. But that list is T-Series Maul with 5 B1s, a B2 unit, a sniper, DRK, and droidicas.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think he's only got like 3 heavy weapons in his core units. I think that there was something that happened there.
I'm assuming that he meant to have another heavy weapon or 2 in there.
Yeah.
And that was where the mistake lies.
Totally.
And, hey, still doing very well. So
yeah, no, for sure.
Shit happens and you can still get through it,
Maul is a good unit, there are 25% of the field has a lightsaber, which is I think maybe more than we're used to at this juncture in the tournament.
I think it's no surprise that the saber users that are left are in CIS who can build a higher activation list, and rebels who can also build higher activation lists. The Luke lists are only 10 activations rather than like 11, but that's mainly because they're bringing an airspeeder and 3 Wookiees in those lists. So like you have more threats there. And what I'm alluding to is that Anakin and Obi-Wan, while they're not represented here, is because it's tough to get them to 10 activations, which is sort of important for Jedi in this game. I shouldn't say it's tough to get them to 10 activations. Tough to get them to 10 activations that matter.
It's tough to make a good 10 activation list with them. Clones.
You're making cuts down the line that can hurt you, essentially. Like whenever I build out an Obi-Wan list, I look at a 10 activation list and I'm always like, I just feel like this is better at 9. And then I also say to myself, it's also tough to make this work in a tournament at 9.
Yeah.
Again, strictly speaking, tournament,
and they lose a lot of the range advantage.
Yeah.
Like Rex brings. The fact that you're bringing Kenobi or Anakin means that you don't have take that clankers. It means you're probably not playing air support.
I've teetered on that one a little bit.
It's awkward because like you definitely, because air support, I don't think air support gives them an order that turn, does it?
No, you just give the order to a clone.
Or maybe you can give them an order, but then you can't really time your air support.
Yeah,
right?
that's
I think that's
definitely part of it. But I want to say it is one commander, so it's not a clone commander. It is one commander, so you can give them an order. But now you're pulling from the bag, and if you pull your clone commander too early, because you're only giving out one order.
Well, you're probably
you're
giving
giving out directing, at 5,
back.
so you're giving out 3.
You probably can get it where you want it to. So I guess you're probably playing air support.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, like air support on Rex and air support on not Rex are like two different things.
Two different ballgames. Surge crit on that is huge.
Surge crit is super huge when backed up by aim tokens. A
Yeah.
lot of times on the air support turn, the only thing you're spending your aim tokens on is
fishing for more crits.
Well, our snipers and Rex's shots. So you've got like 10 aim tokens, and you just have a bunch of extra ones. So you play it like line and wait a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, every time I build out a list, it pretty much comes in with the same. When I'm building an Obi-Wan list, it's like Obi-Wan, clone commander, like 5s, whatever you can fit into the core, and 3 snipers. Essentially, is how I typically build out my Obi-Wan. I know that people have had success with Obi-Wan and Padme and stuff like that. I typically like to bring like the extra heavy weapon versus Padme. That's the debate that I typically get into. Is that you're basically trading Padme for a phase 2 heavy weapon. I could see both ways. I could see, but again, at the end of the day, it's tough to get him to 10 activations. And that's where like the Luke list and the Maul list are thriving, is that they're 10 or 11 activations, which is so massive for a Jedi in a competitive setting. I think I can't even put into words how important that is.
I also, just some more takeaways here. Like, turns out sniper strike teams are still good.
I've had that discussion like 5 times the past week looking at these lists.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it is what it is. I like even in non-clone lists, like there's one list that didn't take a sniper strike team, and that was the triple Wookiees list.
Which has three things of Pierce anyways.
Right. And everything else, it has at least one sniper team, and like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of them have 3 snipers, and there are 1, 2, 3 more that have at least 2. So,
listen, I understand the hatred of strike teams. I can understand it, but I guarantee you that if you were playing these games without long range Pierce against clones, and you were already struggling against clones with the long range Pierce, and let's say you take strike teams out on all of it. Now I get that arcs make it a little bit different for clones too, right? But I'm just saying it's hard to kill clones when you're shooting them with non-piercing weapons, right? You can have so many shots just bounce off of them. It's important to have those long range Pierce. I just feel like strike teams are just like one of those necessary evil things. And I think Kyle, well before I was on this podcast, if I remember correctly, always said that they were like the demons that were keeping other demons at bay, or however he put it.
150%.
And it's so true. I may not like it. You may not like it. You might be listening and might not like it, that strike teams are a thing, but I do think that there is merit behind that statement, that they're the thing keeping the other thing away. And they're still going to be good. That's how it's going to be. Long range Pierce in this game is very important. And I do understand why they are disliked. I do get that.
I mean, I'm just emphasizing it because the amount of people that have commented on like my list building stuff is like, why do you just put 3 snipers in your list at the beginning every time? This is why. Because it's a safe place to start, right? Like, it's just like, if you're building a competitive list, it's a good bet. You should just start with 3 sniper strike teams. And if you can want to change it around a little bit, you can, but like, that's where you should start.
There's so many times, I'm not gonna lie, where like I'll be like list building and I'll put like 2 snipers in instead of a third, and I'll try and like fluff it up around it. And I'm like, no, let's delete that and add a 3rd sniper. It happens so often.
Yeah.
It almost feels like muscle memory, maybe. I don't know. But every time I do it and I don't have a 3rd strike team without, like, let's say like a Clan Ren or like a Wookiee unit or something like that, that's also bringing Pierce to the table or something. They're just good, low cost activations that do necessary damage at long range in a lot of specific matchups. Like there are definitely matchups where the snipers won't feel great, which is like droids, or, you know, against like rebels. Sometimes you're just playing some rebel troopers depending on what's going on, right? And I get that. It might feel quote unquote useless, but I'll tell you right now, when you're shooting a phase 2 clone trooper unit, like, and you're rolling some paint, you're going to feel really effing good. Like,
well, in the times that you need to like take that one unit leader off the table and
oh my God.
like, you know, you want to be efficient about it and not waste like a full, you know, squad shot at removing like 1B1 model from the table, like you're going to want a sniper, right? Like they're very effective in those scenarios, and those scenarios matter a ton.
Oh man.
You know, they matter a lot. You know, the sharpshooter matters, the Pierce matters, like just they're cheap, efficient, and frankly, they're pretty consistent, you know. I know that you could argue that the Rebel ones are less consistent here than this droids and arcs, and clearly arcs are more effective than the droid ones. But
that's a whole different discussion.
That's a whole different discussion. But at the end of the day, sometimes you just need a unit that like can you know hit the chip shot. You know.
Yeah, I think we fall into that path quite often, is that we compare similar units to other units, and I get why that happens. And I'm not saying that listen, it makes good discussion. I'm not saying that it shouldn't happen. But like, yes, a rebel trooper strike team, not as good as an arc trooper strike team, but what that strike team brings to the table is still very important to your list building. That's basically what I'm trying to
do. And I think fundamentally, like, you know, all of them bring the same base things, right?
Yes.
Well, you know, chipping away at red saves, chipping away at unit leaders. It's just, you know, arcs have other perks.
Right.
You know, so
for sure.
Yeah. So I guess at the end of the day, you know, this isn't too surprising. I'm a little bit surprised at how well Maul is doing. Just in contrast to the fact that how many snaps were originally taken. And other than that, you know, I'm a little bit surprised there was only one Lando Luke list.
So I was actually just thinking, I'm actually kind of surprised that there's only 3 rebels, because I do think rebels aren't as badly situated as this list might suggest, right? I do think rebels are a little bit better situated than, say, Empire, right? I do think what happened, if you look at if you had the data in front of you from Kyle, I don't think rebels played a single Imperial list, which they thrive against Imperials.
Well, because there weren't any, really.
Well, yes. No, I know that the numbers were small, but I also think that they probably didn't play a lot of clone lists, because rebels do really well against clones because of the Pierce.
Yeah.
Which makes me think that rebels ran into droids, which is their worst nightmare.
Well, and the statistics in the Rebel Republic matchup are actually, I think, in the Republic's favor, or Rebels' favor.
I think so.
Presently.
Which makes me think that rebels got hit by a lot of droids here.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's, you know, I mean, it makes sense. You know, they load pretty consistent Pierce. I do think I'm a little bit surprised that there is no Cassian in these. And I think that may speak to your, like, they ran into a lot of droids. Right, because the last thing Cassian really wants to line up against is like a B1 B2 horde with, you know, I mean, I guess he can like kill some staps and stuff, but
these lists suggest to me that these players were beefing up to play droids. You know, Lando gives Luke an extra attack if you plan it right. That list also has 3 Wookiees, which has a volume of dice to deal with droids. One list has the airspeeder, and the other one's an 11 activation list with Sabine, who has explosions, Vets, who have a big dice pool, Clan Ren, who's fast and has a good dice pool. Like, those 3 lists specifically speak to me that they were geared towards dealing with. Now, mind you, they can deal with a lot of things. I'm not saying they can't deal with clones. They can definitely deal with clones, but they were geared to make sure that they could survive the droid matchup, is how I'm reading it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well,
we kept this kind of even keeled without Kyle's. I kind of feel like,
I'm a little surprised, right?
I know.
I mean, I'm not sure that there's a ton of hot takes to take out of this,
No.
other than like these are solid.
We'd be lying if we were
Solid
hot taking. I
competitive
think.
lists. Yeah, I mean, this is not that far off the mark of where I expected us to end up when at the beginning of this.
I'm with you.
You know, the lightsaber users that I thought were good are here. The lightsaber users that aren't. There's no heroes in here that I think is exceptionally weird. I will say that if I were to, I think the fact that there are 2 copies of Padme here might be maybe the most surprising thing on this list. I
Sure.
don't know.
I think it should be noted that she's in 2 armor lists, which makes sense.
Yeah,
I understand there's only one
They're in
ATRT.
little weird lists that are doing like funky things. They're definitely not your standard clone lists. Both of them only have 3 core units because Padme is basically the cost of a phase 2.
Phase 2, yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, nothing crazy here. It is an infantryman's game still, it looks like. Yes, there's a saber tank and 1 ATRT and 1 droid deca and a bunch. I guess staffs are technically vehicles. They don't really feel like it.
Sure.
But I definitely think vehicles have again not had a great showing.
Yeah, I have a feeling if I had to take a guess, AATs felt the wrath of ARC troopers.
I'm sorry, there's an airspeeder here too. That's not completely fair.
But I would think that the AATs are gone because of ARCs. Like ARCs, you took down a good amount of AATs. Now you didn't kill the AATs, mind you, but
I killed 2 of the 3 of them.
Okay, you did, but you essentially took apart their list too. So like.
Yeah. I mean, I killed everything around them.
Yeah,
killing the AATs became
a bonus,
secondary bonus objective. Killing one of them was actually maybe necessary, but the other one was not so much. But yeah, I mean, sometimes the thing is, at the end of the day, vehicles can't score most objectives. So
that's the tough part. Yeah,
they still can't take a deck that's fully loaded with objectives that they can affect and score. As long as
they probably couldn't outbid these 13 stat lists too. I mean, they probably could,
maybe,
but it would hurt them a lot more than 13 act lists. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Which means they're not getting their key positions or maybe they are. But these 13 act lists might be taking KP. I'm not really sure actually.
I think they are.
Yeah, because there's so many bodies you probably do.
And just Separatists are generically pretty good at KP. Vehicles or no vehicles. Just because it's sometimes easy to mob them with quad moving B1 droids on turn 5 and 6. Yeah. But yeah, that's when I see B1s line up across the table, I'm just like rubbing my hands together and like I'm ready to like feast. That's how I feel when I understand you play Kenobi, so you don't feel that way.
Or I play Rebels too, so like sometimes like I see them across the table, I'm like, you sons of bees.
Yeah, but when B1s line up across the table for me, I'm just like,
I will say like
eat tonight.
I will say like I was I think last season I was helping someone practice for Invader League Single Eliminations, and they were playing droids, and I played like an 11 activation Rex list. And that was like the one time I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to eat tonight. And typically I don't feel that way against B1s because I have too many things I'm trying to do because of like a force user, or I don't necessarily I don't think I really had the dice to deal with droids in certain matchups. And
sure.
Like the last time I played against a droid list, I think that was when I was playing like the Mando skew list. And like, I was in that awkward position where I have to overextend my Mandos to shoot droids because I'm only shooting range 3 except for my rockets, and I don't have any heavy weapons on any of my rebel troopers, so I can't engage at range 3. Like, it was just an awkward situation, and
I just when you're winding up like 2 or 3 Z6 shots a turn, you're just like, oh, I'm just taking your B1s and handfuls of 6 off the table.
Yeah, you might as well just put a B1 on your like black and white dice that you're rolling.
Yeah,
B1 head.
It's just
custom
like
dice.
6. I mean, it's not that difficult to take like 12 or 14 B1 models off the board a turn once you engage.
Not if you're winding up like you are. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're like, oh, I've got a Z6 shot and it's got 4 aim tokens behind it, and I have 3 of them. Let's fight. Hope your non-surging white dice do the trick. Yeah. So in any case, so I think unless you have anything to add, I think that probably wraps it up for us today.
Yeah. No.
So we'll be going into the top 16 here. The Notorious Scoundrels are making up 12.5% of the field, headed into the top 16. And
you're playing this week, aren't you?
I think I'm playing Saturday morning.
Okay.
I think.
Give or take. You have a tough schedule.
I'm playing Sammy P. I believe he's in he's out of the UK, I think.
Yeah.
And it is clone on clone. He's playing the Rex, Clone Commander Padme, ATRT. I think he's got Echo in a phase 2 unit. We'll see how that goes. It's a little bit unconventional list. It's worth noting he's got an extra couple sources of Pierce and Padme and Echo plus 3 sniper strike teams. So
yeah, he's got some interesting fire support platforms if he really wanted to.
It totally does. So I haven't had a ton of practice against lists like that. Like this is definitely a list that's a little bit outside my comfort zone of playing against. So we'll see how it goes. It does not have a ton of bodies, so
that's the thing. If you start chipping away his core, it's gonna be tough for him to kind of recover from that.
Yeah, and the ATRT is a laser ATRT, so
it sounds like it's a range 4 platform for
I think so. Yeah. I mean that's really the only conclusion. I think Padme and the ATRT, you can do some weird things because Echo is in a phase 2 unit, so you can like hit somebody with an ATRT at range 4 and fire support with and Echo.
You can spend that aim for lethal too, I think, right?
You totally can.
Yeah.
So it's it's only a 5-die pool, but it's a 5-die pool at range 4 that has Pierce, and it's I think it's like red black,
don't
black,
do this to me.
red. Like it's a pretty good pool.
It's nothing to sniff at. Yeah. Nothing to sniff at.
So it's a little scary, but I also think the ATRT probably dies to strike teams pretty well.
Yeah, I think so too.
So we'll see. I'm looking forward to it, but we've got that scheduled, I think, for Saturday.
Cool. Hopefully at a reasonable time.
Yeah, I think it's.
I know it's tough to.
I think it's like 10 a.m. my time.
Okay.
So
I think my wife works Saturday. Maybe I should drop off the kids so I can have some primetime television at 10 a.m.
There you go. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us. So we are the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Mike.
I'm Zach.
And we will catch y'all on the flip side.